Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we're exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. This is part 2 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 48 through 53 in House of Sky and Breath.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
Chapter 51, we are back with Hunt, and he's still processing everything with Emile. He's upset that it wasn't going to end with Emile. I think there's also that realization of shit, Danica really is involved. And just that, there's nothing that's going to stop Bryce to learning more about Danica. Quote, plenty of time to also stress over Bryce and how well she played all of them. How she'd helped Emile, but she hidden her plans from him, plans that had cost lives. And yeah, Bryce could take care of herself, but he thought they were a team. Again, he knew he'd been a fool. That's what it comes down to, the core of it, is that Hunt thought they were a team. Because Bryce, at the very start of this book, was, you and I are a team. Mm-hmm. Ultimate beer pong people. We're it. And Hunt believes that, and he was going along with the ride for all of that. And it's kind of the fact that she's hit plans that cost people's lives. Again, he's struggling, what you're saying, with her embracing and accepting her veneer and everything that she's stepping into. And what's hard about this argument is that Hunt's character is emotionally mature enough to understand and process all of this, right? We're getting damn, this is why I'm hurting. I hurt because I thought we were a team. That makes it very easy to the reader to understand. I don't even have to practice empathy. You're telling me what to feel. You're telling me you hurt because of X, Y, and Z. I can get it. I understand. I'm with you. Versus Bryce, who, because she doesn't have the years of critical thinking like Hunt does, I feel like it makes it so much harder to empathize with her because we don't have that clear moment without that defiance, right? She'll be like, oh, I feel bad, but I did it for a reason. Oh, I guess, I wish I didn't kill people, but I do it again.
Yeah.
She doesn't say I'll do it again, but it's I think you don't get that same level of vulnerability. Granted, that's not their characters. That's not, Hunt is much more emotional like that. But that's where I stand.
I'm going to make a different argument.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Let me start with that. I'm just, for the sake of arguing, I'm going to make a different argument, which is Hunt, his characterization and how he's able to process is true of characters in SJM's later writing.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Bryce, who is younger, and compare her to human Feyre in ACOTAR, there's so much subtext that you have to read through that makes her harder to parse.
You mean Bryce?
Bryce.
Yeah.
But it's like Feyre in ACOTAR. We did so much subtext reading.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way that we're doing the same thing with Bryce here.
I agree.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I agree with the subtext, and I like the idea of comparing it with Feyre. It was still, Feyre always had noble intentions and remorse.
Yeah.
I think it's just the lack of remorse that I also get caught up on.
Yeah, that's fair. I do feel like what we're seeing here is, to your point, Hunt's upset because he's most comfortable when they're a team.
Yeah.
And when they're in sync.
Yep.
And I also think the flip side, Bryce is upset because she's most comfortable when she's independent, when she can do whatever she wants.
It's so unfortunate.
Yeah. When she can control the information in the narrative.
Yes. Yep. That's funny.
Thanks.
No, I don't think you were making a joke. I just think the situation's funny.
Yeah, the situation is funny. I do feel like this situation is Juniper on steroids. And I think Bryce, unlike with Juniper, couldn't see what she was doing wrong. I think deep down, Bryce understands that she did something that isn't quite, it's very gray. But she feels justified enough that she wants everyone else to accept it too.
I feel like she has more regret with Juniper than she does not telling Hunt.
Okay.
Because she calls Fury and is like, I feel horrible. She will end up sending her a voice message being horrible. Then again, Juniper had a more harsh reaction than Hunt. Well, so maybe it's like, maybe Bryce gets the wiggle room to feel less remorse because if Hunt had a I can't even look at you attitude, I can't even speak to you the way that Juniper had, I think we'd be getting more remorse from her.
Yeah, and I think also with Juniper it came from left field. So the natural reaction is apology, whereas Bryce has had a lot of time to rationalize to herself why she's been keeping this information. Yep.
Now again we're still with Hunt, and he's talking to Celestina, and he has to lie about having seen Bryce's parents. Quote, even if some part of him recoiled at having to answer Celestina's question with a blatant lie. And poor Celestina, can we have a freaking scene with her where someone's not lying to her or ignoring her?
Nope, not at all.
Nope.
Just like Bryce, Hunt is lying to her, and he's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think deep down his instinct is telling him, you know what? Celestina might be an ally. She might be good.
Oh, you think that's what?
In this moment.
Gotcha.
In this moment. Because he's feeling guilty that he's
that feeling's about to go away real fast.
Yeah, sure is. But like we said earlier, Hunt can't trust a woman with power, especially if that power is over him. He does think, quote, everything between them was a lie. In this moment, I like to think that Hunt wants to be on Celestina's team. Just like he wants to be on Bryce's team, and once upon a time he was on Shahar's team. Deep down, he wants to support. He wants to be rah, go you, go he's strong woman.
I just want to be with my mate. I just want to support a woman.
Yeah.
I want to be a feminist. But you bitches are making it hard for me.
You bitches are making it hard. Though we've seen Celestina is powerful, and Hunt knows that she is powerful, she's been relegated to the very feminine task of party planning, which is not befitting her abilities. And I wonder if that's part of Hunt's empathy for Celestina right now. Of just that's it?
Yeah. Hunt would be a great party planner.
Really?
No, I don't know. In my mind, he has a crystal shop.
That's right. Yeah. Despite Hunt's anger with Bryce keeping Emile from him, Hunt still channels Bryce. Quote, he'd find some way to draw out the task of looking into demons in Nenya to buy himself more time, to decide how much to tell Celestina about hell. Again, information is currency, and Hunt is going to withhold that information or do what he thinks is right until the time is right to share the information. And that's a very Bryce move. We're going to see Tharion do the same thing later. They're all in sync right now.
Very Bryce-coded. Speaking of someone who's also Bryce-coded, the Hind. Hunt goes to find the Hind to confront her. And where does he find her? She's in the bathroom putting on lipstick. Who is another person who uses their femininity and uses makeup as a weapon? Bryce. It screams Bryce. Quote, he hunted down the Hind in 10 minutes, finding her in the barracks bathroom, applying red lip liner of all things. He never thought she might actually put on her makeup. Somehow he pictured her permanently coiffed and painted. It screams Bryce. It's all her. It's meant to link the two women to show that the Hind is good. At the very least, it's showing that the Hind is putting on a mask right now, which it so obviously is because she's lying. She's lying. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
La 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 la. You're being an idiot. I fucked Pollux. Yeah, I forget that quote. But she's definitely putting on a mask, and he is not. He doesn't understand the symbolism of this moment.
No, he doesn't. I do think it does two things. It humanizes the Hind. Like, oh, she's not a robot who has it permanently painted on her face.
Yep.
And it's her putting on her Asteri fanatic mask.
Yeah.
The Hind calls Hunt Hunter. His nickname, if he had, fallen in line and joined Sandriel's H-team. That's what they are in my mind.
Oh, yeah, because it's the Hind, the Hunter.
Yeah.
The Hound,
the hammer, the hellhound, the harpy, the hawk.
H-team forever.
I never noticed it until this read, of course.
Really funny.
To me, though, for Lidia to use that could be two things. Either she's trying to bring Hunt to her level, say we're on the same team, or, and this is how I think Hunt sees it, it's an act of intimidation. Like, you're just as bad as the rest of us. I do think SJM uses it to be a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
That they're on the same side. She's trying to signal to him. But also, the Hunter hunts the Hind.
Yeah.
So Hunt should feel empowered. But of course he doesn't because it has a Sandriel connotation.
It's a shame. I was thinking about the H thing again. Sorry, going back to that. Yeah. It would have been more clever because I feel like that was done on purpose, right? Like that has to have some meaning.
Yeah.
If the H was the 7th letter of the alphabet, that would have been incredible. But it's the 8th.
What's the significance of 8?
I don't know, but like, wouldn't that have been good?
It would have been so good.
Yeah.
She probably was like G.
The grinder. The grammar.
Gosh, golly, G.
The goth, like, yeah, it doesn't really have the same.
Not the same ring.
What's an animal that's the
Gopher.
Giraffe? Just doesn't have that same.
No. The gator.
Lydia just transforms into a gator, running slow. Amy just wiggled her butt. Okay, so the Hind plays dumb, pretending to not know what Hunt is asking about. Quote, she opened a tube of lipstick and began filling in the precise outline she'd drawn. If you're referring to when I fucked Pollux in the shower, I'm afraid I'm not going to apologize to Naomi Boreas for leaving the stall door open. I did invite her to join, Weaponizing the feminine again. Like, here she is filling in the lip liner. And here she is weaponizing sex. It's Bryce. It's Bryce.
So Bryce. We get a moment where there's a reference to Lidia looking like Luna. Quote, she set the golden lipstick tube on the counter and pivoted, beautiful and cold as a statue of Luna. So I've theorized before that Luna is Aelin because Lidia is a direct descendant of Aelin.
People on Instagram liked that theory.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
However,
okay,
I had a different thought today.
All right, well, sorry, those people on Instagram.
It gets arguably better.
Oh.
We also learn later, when Hypaxia visits Ruhn, Hypaxia tells Ruhn that Lidia is the spitting image of their mother, who therefore also looks like Luna.
Okay.
If they're the same.
Okay.
Lydia is a shifter from her father.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
that
the Aelin line.
Yeah.
But if she looks exactly like her mother,
then that would
her
be
looks
Aelin.
come from her mother's line.
Yeah.
Her mother is a witch. Who might Luna be then? Golden eyes. They both have golden eyes. Manon.
Yeah. Yeah. You know when like a detective is trying to catch a serial killer,
comes up with all sorts of shit.
Yeah, they're like it. I like you.
Wow, but not your theory.
The thing is, I like the idea that it's interesting because like to a point where yes, the fact that she looks like her mother, who is not the Aelin side, is poignant. But I still like the fact that, but at the same time, we weren't told that she looks like Luna. Just that there's like symbolism in moment of it. I still like that Luna is Aelin.
I do too.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that you're wrong now. And you were right then.
Your first theory was better than your second.
The Manon one is just funny because it's like, where can we pull her into this?
But they do have golden eyes. She does have golden eyes.
She does have golden eyes. It would be great as if that actually... You look so sad. I'm sorry. This was a great theory.
I thought it was brilliant.
No, it's so good. It's so good. It would be hilarious if like it actually ended up being that. And I just be like, wow,
You'll apologize to me then.
I will apologize so hard.
I think you owe me 2 crab hand rolls.
Or now?
No, if it becomes true.
Okay, good. I'm like, oh, you shit right now. You owe me Korean barbecue.
You owe me Korean barbecue.
For what? For what one?
I'm teasing you. You said after I did your taxes, you're like, I'm the one who
Oh,
owes
yeah,
you
I
dinner.
do Korean barbecue.
I'm teasing.
Okay, no, but it's fair.
We're canceled out.
Okay.
We're both going to enjoy Korean barbecue together.
All right, fair. Unless Manon somehow ends up being Luna, then I'll buy you some sushi. You got several years before that happens.
Yeah, that's true. Or, never.
Yeah. We then kind of get into this other moment where we find out that the Harpy has tortured some rebels and threw their bodies out in display for everyone to see.
So, for whatever reason, I thought it was important to look up the historical significance of Blood Eagle.
I was like, isn't that just spread eagle but on your period?
No.
Okay.
So in popular media today and in this book as well, it's depicted as splitting open the ribs, pulling out the lungs, and then putting it on the back of the person. So the lungs are like wings.
Oh, that's pretty.
God, no, it's not. Historical accounts are mixed. Some are that gruesome, some are not. Sometimes it was just capturing someone in battle and carving an eagle into their back instead of, cracking open the ribs and pulling out the lungs. That's a lot of work.
It really is so much work.
And the message usually means honor and revenge, or reserved for your most hated enemy. So I could see why the Harpy would do this to some rebels. Like, you are the dirt of the earth.
I think it's also like mocking the honor and revenge.
Yeah,
like this is like your leader or who's running the rebels. Like there's so much honor to them. Take that. Did you find photos when you looked it up?
Carvings,
like drawings of it.
Yeah,
I want to see that. I'll look at it later. It just reminds me of the Lungs album.
It does,
from Florence and the Machine.
Yeah.
Hunt, though, at this time really struggles with the fact that Celestina hadn't told her. And he's like back to being like, another woman betrayed me again.
Didn't tell me anything.
Like, I just want to support women so bad.
I am super feminist.
But you're making it so hard. Yeah. He is like this close of taking that little red pill. Like, no, that we're not giving him an excuse for being shit. He can still be a proud feminist.
He can. I think it's another moment where Hunt feels like he's been done dirty. He was feeling guilt. He was feeling empathy.
Yeah.
You know, he's felt those things for Shahar. He's felt those things for Bryce. And yet they just keep lying to him.
I know. You cannot not be lied to.
However, this is pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
So, like, if it were true, Hunt's anger seems totally justified.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's his city. Celestina allowed Sandriel's Triari, now her Triari, to do this awful thing. Yeah, like, this is a huge crime. However, Hunt, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe Celestina is relegated to party planning and has no power.
If Hunt and Bryce ever have kids and they have a daughter, the second his daughter lies to him, even like if she's 4, he's gonna have like PTSD to this. He's like, they all lie to me.
My daughter is like Shahar.
Even you betrayed me, daughter. While looking at the scene of the crime or revenge, whatever, it's crime, it's bad, bodies, Hunt has this moment, quote, Hunt swallowed against the dryness in his mouth, but others had noticed him now. The umbra mortis, they murmured, like he'd helped the harpy create this atrocity. His title is being used against him, just like it was in Crescent City 1. Like, when you think about that, it was very much like the umbra mortis, beware. Like, they all knew the bloody history. And right now, in this book, up until this point, it's been like the umbra mortis has been kind of like a little extra power tool. And now it's bringing back memories and everything. And again, I think this affects him more because he's on the outs with Bryce. Yeah. Because Bryce likes that umbra mortis, but because he's in an argument with her, he doesn't like it because she accused him of only seeing Vanir, and now here's another Vanir grouped with other Vanirs.
It's a lot of Vanir.
It's a lot of Vanirs.
We briefly get a moment with Ruhn, and, you know, I wonder if there's supposed to be a small feeling of foreboding in us as readers, because Hunt has been so angsty about Bryce lying to him, and then Ruhn's like, I wonder if she's told him about the mystics yet. Which is hilarious because, you know, if he's like this now, are we going to dread? Are we going to are we going to regret that fact if and when he finds out?
You know, I think we started with Emile. Everything is easy peasy from there.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I know.
She saw Thanatos.
That's not great.
No, it's not.
No.
He knows her name.
Forgot. Oopsies. Chapter 52 starts, and we are with Tharion. You know, missed him. We got to be back with him. So missed him.
Captain whatever.
Why am I... Never mind. I'm going to take this out. But why am I attracted to him? Because I'm working it out in therapy.
Avoidant attachment.
Yep. He's the most avoidant.
Yeah.
I have issues. We see potential, though, I think, finally, for maybe sketchy queen. But, you know, I think it's all debatable. I think I can argue either way. But basically, the River Queen finds out about the Ocean Queen's fleet. Quote, do sisters not share everything? She dragged a finger along the jagged edge of an oyster, and it opened, revealing the pearl within. They mock me with those ships. They suggest I am not trustworthy. So the River Queen is concerned about the ships, right? About like what happens if they're more powerful than me, if they're more in charge. And I think there's something about like the River Queen opening this oyster and getting that pearl. You know, I think there's like, you can say the pearl is the truth and she's trying to search for truth. You can say the pearl is the fact that the pearl is like valuable, but also breakable. You know, there's a lot of things that you can argue what the pearl means. I think because I see like so many different arguments, I have no particular stance on what that pearl represents.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to look at it as something beautiful, fragile, and also you kind of have to kill something to get it.
Yeah.
You have to kill the oyster in order to get the pearl.
Yeah. No, that's a great point because, yeah, it is kind of ominous.
Yeah.
Because is the oyster her sister? Is the oyster her relationship with her sister? You know, what is it that the pearl represents to the River Queen? And we don't really know at this point.
Yeah.
And that and it informs obviously how Tharion views the River Queen.
Yep.
And we view the River Queen through him, therefore we assume the worst.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I will say I love how, and I know this comes about through revision and editing and external input, but I love how themes in these sections carry across all the characters.
Yeah.
Because just earlier in this episode, we didn't talk about it. Bryce talks about losing a sister, aka Danica.
Yep.
Who kept information from Bryce? Her sister, Danica.
Yep. And
And Bryce has struggled with the question of why.
Yep.
And so we're seeing that reflected in the River Queen right now.
Good freaking point.
And Hunt is struggling with the same thing with Bryce.
Yeah.
So it is. I've got goosebumps. Look at that.
You do have goosebumps with your own point.
I'm just in awe
Of SJM.
of SJM's writing ability, how we see
Consistent themes.
consistent themes, like these characters going through similar difficulties at the same time, but they don't necessarily look the same.
Yeah. No, I think your chills are warranted. It does connect us more wholly especially when the River Queen has been such a far off storyline,
Mm-hmm.
but it grounds us into this overall plot because yes, this is what we're seeing with Bryce.
Yeah.
This is also, like, if we're able to connect her with Bryce and we're trusting Bryce, should we trust the River Queen?
Yeah.
The River Queen is concerned about her sister using those ships against her, and Tharion thinks she rules the ocean. I doubt she wants one stupid river. It's like not how war works. Like she has the river of Lunathian.
Yeah.
That's a huge ass river. That's a very important river.
Right.
And he just doesn't understand war the way that I do as a strategist.
You understand war so well.
I have seen my roommate play God of War.
That makes you an expert.
I once won chess.
I'm really proud of you.
Ask me how many times I played chess.
Once.
That's right.
Who'd you win against?
Dre. She taught me how to play chess, and then I played against her, and I won, and I refused to rematch her because I knew I'd piss her off. And then she was so mad. She was like, play me. I was like, no, I'm going to retire now. And I've never played chess since because I'm 100 for 100, and nor will I.
My note on this is that Tharion is anti-feminist because he's constantly minimizing women's fears or concerns.
Yeah.
Look what he did to, I was about to call her Feyre, Bryce at the Mystics.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yeah. Tharion makes a weak-ass argument as to why he should stay in the above looking for Emile. And like, it was just like, it was so stupid. I'm not going to read it. Just trust me, guys. It was a stupid argument. The queen says, though, like, sure, go forth. I don't care. And I feel like the queen knows that it's a dumb argument, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the queen sees it for what it is. Quote, she flicked a hand in dismissal. I shall make your excuses to my daughter. Give her my love. She didn't answer. Tharion just keeps taunting her with her daughter.
Yeah.
With her daughter. I would like to imagine that if I was the daughter and I already hadn't like made Tharion my little bitch, I think that I don't want to say killed because realistically I wouldn't kill him, but I would date him, cry, and then hurt him. My mom would have like really stepped in and probably had him killed by now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do find it interesting that their mutual disdain, it's so obvious she doesn't want him around.
Yeah.
And he can't see it.
He's like, she wants me trapped. I can't leave.
I mean, that speaks to his ego and his arrogance.
So much so. Sorry, I'm just like coming up with a list of things to take back to my therapist. With Ruhn, now we're back with him. Hypaxia finally shows up. And I remember when I was originally reading this was the exact moment where I was like, there aren't really a lot of women in this. Huh. That's interesting because you're so far, like you are over the halfway mark. You were closing into the end. And it was definitely a moment of like, I could have used her sooner.
Yeah.
This has been a very male, just Bryce pick me time. But going back into the Hypaxia being there. So Hypaxia is there and she arrives on a little broom that she turns into a pendant of a pregnant Chthona. And it's in contrast to her sister, like it's definitely like, if Luna, I mean, I'm going back to your theory, go back. No, but even if she's like, Lydia's been compared to Luna in general. And now we have this moment. But then I was like, hey, didn't we see Celestina have a statue of Chthona in her home?
You are correct, ma'am.
Hell yeah.
I was very impressed with you.
Thank you.
And then I went on a ramble. Maybe she's the patron god of lesbians.
I
but
love
isn't
it.
she pregnant?
Lesbians
and she's
could be
also with Solus?
You know what? Lesbians can be pregnant too.
They can be.
And with men. But
bisexual.
Yeah, or like, they haven't come out yet. I don't know. But I want Chthona to be a lesbian god icon.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ruhn thinks of Hypaxia as his bride at the start of this scene. And we get another moment of ownership, despite him having not seen her for 500 and something pages.
Yep.
And he's still very, very attracted to her, which I think is supposed to throw us off and make us think, could she be Day?
Oh, because it worked.
It totally
worked for me.
I mean, it worked for you.
Some of us were able to figure out that Lidia was Day, and other of us figured out Farah's riddle. So, we each have our strengths.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Touche. Now, we are in Ruhn's point of view. And when I first read Sky and Breath, I definitely interpreted Hypaxia's interactions with the dragon as jealousy. I don't know if you had this sense.
Interesting.
Or maybe that's what Ruhn wants to see. Quote, Hypaxia gave the dragon another wary glance.
Past me probably felt that.
Yeah. Well, because we all were like, yeah, they're going to get together.
Marriage? Like arranged marriage?
Yeah.
How is that? Yeah. How is that not a setup for love?
True. Knowing now that Hypaxia's preference and that she's with Celestina, I wonder now if Hypaxia's interested in Ariadne. Because everyone's like, she's a stunning female.
And naked all the time.
And naked. I mean, how could you not be interested?
Right? Ruhn then makes his round of introductions. Quote, allow me to introduce my companions. Tristan Flynn, Lord Hawthorne, Declan Emmett, super genius. Ithan Holstrom, Wolf? Ethan gave him a look as if to say, really, asshole? It's because you have no talent or title, Ethan.
I mean,
you provide nothing.
He could have just said roommate.
He could have been like, former Sun Bowl captain. That's basically his personality. He could have just said roommate. But I think that even though it's funny, it's a nice little dig at him. Like, again, we're reading things off camera here and off subtext. And I think that's a good moment where it's like, oh, that probably hurt him much more.
Yeah. And it's an interesting juxtaposition considering he's going to be the future Prime.
Yeah. Yeah. Ruhn, though, is absolutely horrified with his home. Quote, his disgusting beer-soaked house. Soulless, a half-smoked mirth root blunt sat in the ashtray on the coffee table, a mere foot away from Hypaxia. Ruhn said to Ethan, mind to mind, get that fucking mirth root out of here. Ethan lunged for it. Not now, when she's not looking. I think some of that shame of his home is like shame on himself. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how he's growing up and, figuring it out because in like a month and a half or 2 months, he's moving in with his mate.
Yeah.
So he has to have these moments of like, oh my God, is this really what my place looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's super important and it's important for us to remember this because Ruhn, to the best of our knowledge, has never exhibited shame over his lifestyle before. Yeah. He left the Star Sword with his dirty laundry at the beginning of the book. Like, he didn't really care.
Yeah.
And let's also remember, he valued Ethan for his ability to be good at beer pong.
Yep.
When he first moved in. Like, this Ruhn is very different from the Ruhn even 10 chapters ago.
I just imagine how hard it must have been for Lidia to move in with him. Because you can tell she is neat and tidy.
Yeah.
And to be like, I need you to put your weapons away. Just put your fucking dirty clothes away.
Stop putting the Star Sword. I guess he doesn't have the Star Sword by then, but
stop
putting your weapons with my dirty underwear.
Yeah, like just darks and lights. That's all I ask. Darks and lights.
Later, quote, Ruhn felt like a whelp in front of Hypaxia. Had she known her fiancé lived in a place like this? Had a lifestyle like this? Just constant shame, which sets Ruhn up for his last moment with Day.
Yep. Because he's already in a spiral of self-doubt and shame.
Yep. I did catch what I think might be a point of view error.
Ooh.
So Ruhn told Ethan to not grab the mirth root as Ethan's lunging for it. Quote, Ethan caught himself. If Ithan had to pick one word to describe the Queen's expression, it would have been baffled. Utterly baffled.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, are we in Ethan's point of view? No, we're in Ruhn's point of view.
Yep.
So maybe she meant Ruhn. Maybe Ruhn read Ithan. But he doesn't read minds.
I think we find these moments and we go, aha.
An error.
Gotcha.
We do have a sad moment as we're talking to Hypaxia. We learn that Hypaxia's coven, aka all the witches of Valbara, want to use Lidia.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, this makes them no different from the Asteri.
Yep.
Because Lidia belongs to everyone except herself.
Mm-hmm.
When Hypaxia expresses her fear that the coven will make Lidia queen of all witches, quote, Lidia has no witch gifts, so she would be a figurehead. She'd wear the crown, but my mother's general, Morganthia, would rule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sad. And also, SJM telling us witches were killer and bomb as fuck in Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
But here, they suck. So just get over it.
It's sad because, like, Lydia's childhood was her being tossed around because she had no value to the witches. And now her adult life, people want to toss her around because she might have value to the witches by having no value.
Right, exactly. Because she can't get in their way.
Yeah. Hypaxia then asks Ruhn for help, and he offers, like, yeah, we got you. Mm-hmm. I have some great illegal people to help you with this. Being the sprites and everyone else. We'll get there. But at this point, though, she, quote, patted his hand in a thanks, friend sort of way. Why did I think this would be a thing? I just was so hopeful.
I think we all were.
I just wanted more smutty stuff with Ruhn. I would accept anyone. I mean, I'm happy that it was with Lidia. She's amazing. I'll take it. We'll be right back.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
We then go to Tharion's point of view, where Hunt has found him and has led him away on the guise of telling him about the demons in Nenya, however, is also there to tell him about Emile. They go together to Moonwood, to a water garden, where Tharion blatantly thinks, I prefer the old square. Probably because he doesn't want to be around water.
Mm-hmm.
It does strike me that both Hunt and Tharion are out of place here.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Hunt chose this place because it's neutral ground.
I think so. That makes sense. Hunt tells Tharion to not look for Emile anymore, and Tharion is not really surprised. Quote, Legs knows where the kid is too, huh? Did she arrange this? I should have seen that coming. He chuckled again, shaking his head. He's not surprised. He's not hurt because Bryce is like him, right? He sees Bryce in him and he sees himself in Bryce. So he's like, I'd do the same thing. He might not understand that human side of her, but he definitely gets that Vanir side of her.
Yeah, he fully embraces the deception once he understands that Bryce was in on it.
Yeah.
I will say, though, when Hunt first tells him and refuses to give him the full information, Tharion is initially angry because what's his motivation? He wants the River Queen to back off.
Yeah.
Hunt, as Tharion's trying to process, Hunt asks Tharion if Tharion's going to torture him for the information, and Tharion says he would consider it. Now, let me remind you, at the beginning of the book, Tharion said he doesn't torture people. He prefers to give them food and play cards to get the information that he needs.
Yep.
For him to truly consider torturing Hunt speaks a lot to how angry he is right now.
Tharion, though, sees an opportunity, and he realizes that he can stay in the above longer. Quote, "It was a dangerous game, but he'd play it. Milk every second of freedom he could from this. Stay above as often as he'd like, so long as he checked in below every now and then." The desperation is building up, and he's like, can I live somewhere? Do you know a place for me to live?
Can I couch surf?
Yeah.
You know, I think this is, again, an information as currency moment, but in almost reverse, because Hunt is withholding information. Tharion's like, well, then I'm going to take advantage of you. I'm going to sleep on your couch because you owe me that.
I mean, it's still a currency. It's just the lack thereof information is the currency.
Exactly. It's almost a debt.
Yeah.
And he uses that to his advantage to stay above and be away from the River Queen.
Love it. In chapter 53, we're with Ithan and company, but now we're in Ethan's point of view? Yeah. But now we're in Ethan's point of view. And he is grateful for Ruhn. Quote, "Ithan tried not to appear too grateful. He spent years thinking Ruhn was a dick, mostly thanks to Bryce and Danica constantly dissing him. But this guy had let him into his house, trusted him with his secrets, and now seemed intent on helping him. He wondered if the Fae knew how lucky they were. One, what are you trying not to appear grateful for? Like, I think you should be grateful.
Yeah.
Two, Ruhn continues to be that replacement for Connor. Ruhn is that new big brother. And three, Ruhn makes Ithan question the meaning of pack and loyalty. And what does it mean to be a good individual? Yeah,
I think I love that you bring that up, because this is like, it's so clear that Ruhn's just a good guy.
Yeah.
He can be stupid, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I think it means a lot that that a wolf can respect Ruhn. On one hand, it's because Ruhn doesn't give himself credit.
Yeah.
And so for other people to see that and validate what we know about Ruhn is meaningful as a reader. I think it is also important because what we're seeing here is Ithan, a future prime, forming a meaningful relationship and respect for the Fae.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to have implications for whatever comes after Flame and Shadow.
Especially once they find out that they're also Fae.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Ithan is given his first responsibility since leaving the pack, and that is protecting and taking care of Hypaxia. Ruhn has not only become his new big brother, not only become a provider of sorts, but he's now given Ithan a purpose. And that's exciting for him.
Yeah, he loves it.
He loves that. Back with Hunt. He goes to Bryce, to the archives, and she's the last to leave the parking lot, and she sees Hunt there waiting for her, and she was like, shit, like I was hoping to avoid him. But she also melts at the way that he's dressed. Quote, "He'd worn his hat, that fucking sunball hat she couldn't resist." It's the power that clothes have. You know, the fact that he's relaxed, he's more casual, he's got that backward baseball cap. And I think it's also just so sweet that the thing that turns her on the most with him, I mean, many things, but like the item of clothing is the one item that means a lot to him.
Yeah, I think I didn't think of it, but when I read your note, I was like, oh, you're right. That's so sweet. Does Hunt know this?
I think he does.
I think he does. And that's him channeling Bryce.
Yeah, you're right.
Using clothing as a weapon.
Because I think she said something to him before about oh, I love that hat. Yeah, so you're right. He knows what he's doing.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He's coming up with some of his like the equivalent of cleavage.
Yeah.
Showing a little leg.
Just his hat.
Yep. Nothing else. Again, Hunt is more vocal and mature than Bryce, but he's also like fairly patient with her. Like he's there and he's willing to kind of poke fun at her.
Yeah.
Quote, avoiding someone, Quinlan? He smiled savagely as she bristled. He's not there to start an argument. Like, I do kind of like the, like, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
You're avoiding me. Bryce, on the other hand, doesn't not know how to use sex.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she's been thinking about him, but at this point, they're in the archives. He's been at it for like 2 hours or something. She says something like along those lines. And he's reading. And she thinks, quote, was he going to ignore what happened earlier? That wouldn't do. Not at all. She casually extended her foot beneath the table, drifting it up Hunt's muscled leg. He slammed his legs together, trapping her foot. Sex is a form of connection for them, but right now she's trying to use that as manipulation of like, no, forgive me. We're back. I don't even want to talk about all this stuff. Like, I just want to have sex. And she sees that he's casual about their argument. And so she's like, well, what's a way that I can get at him? It's sex. Bryce, though, also wants to forgive. Like, she wants that forgiveness. I think she just wants that clean slate because, like, you know, once they have sex, there's going to be, they're back to the intimacy, right? You can't really completely ignore the argument. And for her, I think sex is the easiest when it comes to that clean slate. Like, she's like, let's not talk about it. Let me jerk you off with my foot, essentially. Bryce tries again to turn him on. Quote, Bryce grazed her toes over his other knee, but he slapped a hand on top of her foot, halting its progress. Yeah, I mean, this is also where the people think that the foot fetish comes from. Just saying. And then finally, Bryce gets Hunt to crack. Quote, he gave her a half smile. Finally, a crack in that pissed off exterior. He's clearly still upset about it, though, and he wants to talk about it. Like, you know, he could very easily be like, all right, let's see how far you're going to go. But he keeps pushing her off. He keeps saying, like, no, this isn't, like, he doesn't say we're going to talk about it, but he's not letting that happen yet.
Yeah.
But Bryce's language of communication is sex. That's how she's connecting with him. That's how she wants to remedy this, and Hunt will answer that with sex, but in a communicative way. Their argument, though, says a lot to me. So at this point, he's rejected her, essentially.
Yeah.
So she gets up and she leaves the desk all annoyed, and Hunt goes after her, and he has to hold her from behind in order to talk. So they're not looking at each other face to face.
I just wanted to ask, like, is Bryce annoyed? Or are they like, oh, we need a book so that we can go somewhere where the cameras can't see us fuck each other? That's how I read this scene. After.
At one point she does like move them away when they're about to have actual sex.
Got it.
From what I remember. I think, though, like she's still, at this point, she's like, she doesn't want to talk to him.
Yeah. Or she doesn't want to have the hard conversation.
And I think, like, Hunt meets her halfway by pulling her to him from behind. They're not looking at each other. There's a lot of sexual tension that's happening. Quote, you drive me fucking crazy. You know that? And you're a domineering alpha hole. You know that? I'm not domineering. He nibbled at her ear. But you'll admit you're an alpha hole? His fingers dug into her hips, tugging her back against him, the hardness there. You want to fuck it out then? Are you still mad at me? He sighed, his hot breath against her neck. Bryce, I needed to process everything. Like, he kind of calls her bluff. He's like, cool, do you want, like, are we not going to have this argument? Do you want to just go at it then?
Yeah.
He has to be the one to still kind of cave emotionally.
Yeah.
And be the one to open up about it.
Yeah. It was not lost on me that she couldn't face him to have this conversation. They are in the darkest part of the archives.
Yep.
You know, they're hidden from cameras.
Yep.
It is no different than talking to Hunt in bed at night when they can't see each other. So she doesn't have to see his face react to whatever she's going to say. And, you know, I feel like Bryce is comfortable with the physical intimacy, but not the emotional intimacy or the vulnerability that comes with having this hard conversation. That is ultimately why, in the cover of darkness, she's willing to let Hunt have control.
Yep. And this is like, he has way more control on this one.
Oh, way more control.
But she loves it.
Oh, yeah. She eats it up.
Hunt, though, is the first to apologize. He tells her that he understands why she did it, but that he thought they were a team and it rattled him. I just summarized some stuff. I didn't need me to read the whole long thing, but I'll read this to you. Quote, "She made to turn around at that, but his hand tightened, holding her in place. So she said, 'We are a team, but I wasn't sure if you'd agree with me, that an ordinary human boy was worth the risk.'" Reminder, whether you want to say Emile is Bryce or Emile is Hunt, at the end of the day, what matters the most is that she wasn't sure with Hunt that he would think that a human was worth the risk. Like, it's still a doubt on who he is as a person. And it's also important to note that Hunt won't let her face him at this point, as if he's afraid that he would confess his feelings to her. Like, that he's afraid of what she'd say to his confessed feelings.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, I think Hunt has a right to be hesitant because she's rejected his attempted apology already once before.
Yeah. Hunt tells her, quote, "Of course I would have thought a human was worth the risk. I was too wrapped up in other shit to see the whole picture. I'm sorry I didn't give you enough credit." She cupped his face. "Hunt, I'm really sorry." Maybe she'd fucked up by not telling him, not trusting him. She regretted that the Viper Queen had killed those people, but she'd be damned if she felt bad about how things had ended. So what we're seeing here is that Bryce has some regret, but not, in my opinion, enough. She doesn't have all of the regret. Hunt, though, at this point, like, does forgive Bryce. And I think as a reader, our job is to forgive her as well, because she's explained her real reasons and Hunt is okay with it. So therefore we should be okay with it. As we figured out, I am struggling with this. And again, I think the reader has struggled with this because I've just seen so many arguments and complaints and frustration with Bryce about this.
Yeah. And I respect that. I remember struggling really hard with this part of the book as well. The first couple times that I read it. I do feel like a couple things are also true, though. As you mentioned, there is some remorse here. And considering how much scheming Bryce has done in the last two books, for her to exhibit some remorse
it's huge.
Is a change.
Yeah.
Like the needle is moving.
Yeah.
And that's important. I think what's more important to me is that she feels guilty about not telling Hunt.
Yeah.
And the deaths as a result of her actions. Those are the two things that mattered to Hunt.
Yeah.
She kept the information from me. People died.
Yeah.
It's not about the end result. Hunt, as he will tell her, is also happy
how it all panned out.
We know what matters to Hunt because we've been in his point of view. And even though he hasn't articulated this to Bryce, we understand in this moment what matters to Bryce. And on those two points, they are aligned. Also, to Bryce's credit, Hunt is a repeat offender.
Oh, yeah.
At paying attention to very little and not seeing the whole picture. I think this just brings it back to the point for me that Hunt did to Emile what all Vanir have done to Hunt. Right? Paying attention to the thing that matters to them instead of looking at the whole holistic person.
Yep.
So I do feel like Bryce's fears were not unfounded. I will argue at the same time, though, Bryce kind of put Hunt in the position to view Emile narrowly instead of giving him the information to expand his understanding of Emile.
Yep.
And to be able to empathize with Emile sooner.
Yeah.
Bryce kept that from him.
Yep.
As I mentioned, Hunt will tell Bryce later, quote, "I love that you did this for that kid." Because ultimately, in my mind, Emile's like Hunt, and Bryce saved someone that is like Hunt. He loves her for that because that's how he fell in love with her because of Syrinx. Same with Emile. Like, Hunt loves that human part of her.
Yeah.
And It's kind of shitty for Bryce to be like, you don't love the human side of me. No.
I know, right? Okay, so as someone who's still processing their feelings, can I?
Yeah,
process?
please go.
So for me, as we've already established, like she hasn't groveled enough. She hasn't apologized enough. Maybe that's the point, because to a point, this is for me personally a half-ass apology in the sense of like you only feel bad about half the things. Like, you know, if I was Hunt, I'd be like, you should know me better. Yeah. Than think that that is my character. Yeah. Like that's where my mind would go to. And, you know, even with the killings and stuff. So it's all, maybe it's a half on purpose, because all of this proves that Bryce is the type of person who would make the choices in Flame and Shadow. Yeah. And that's another thing people have issues with, is that like, who is Bryson from in Flame and Shadow? She's so different. She, you know, is a lot colder. She makes these like very calculating moves. Maybe this is the point of how lacking of recognition she has here.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. This Bryce right now is Flame and Shadow's Bryce.
Absolutely.
This is, what do I need to do to see the outcome I want to see?
Yep.
And it sucks that somebody died,
but it
was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? To fight the Asteri, I think that's the kind of person you have to be.
It's true.
There are going to be casualties.
Yeah. And, you know, she kind of had to take a much more ruthless view and attitude than Fair ever got to.
Right.
And I can't remember Front of Glass at all, so.
Aelin was ruthless in her own way.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me. All right, now to go into this next quote. Quote. He hooked a strand of her hair behind her ear, kissed its pointy tip, forgiveness that she hadn't realized she needed, fill the gesture. So, you know, this kind of goes into the other half of like this conversation where it's like, okay, she doesn't need it. Like, she's like, I'm going to do whatever I need. But she does have that kernel of, I do need this to some degree.
Yeah. You know, I think that for Bryce to be able to admit only, even if it's only to herself, like, oh, I did want his forgiveness.
Yeah, that's
again, we're seeing the needle move.
Yeah.
When it comes to Bryce's relationship with Hunt. I also think if we talk about the fact that if we're convinced that Bryce feels like Hunt rejected her full veneer, him choosing to kiss her pointy ears, feels like an acceptance of that veneer.
Yep.
Now, as we've mentioned, Hunt has to be controlled during sex, and Bryce lets him. This, in my mind, this is her way of apologizing.
Yeah.
It's part of her apology process.
It's part of her apology, but also like what
she wanted. Benefits.
She wanted that. She wanted this like rough on the floor from behind.
Yeah, yeah. Hunt wants control over Bryce after he's made to feel all sorts of feelings and doubt himself and doubt her and doubt Shahar. Quote, I love you undone like this, he said, moving again, setting the pace, utterly at my mercy.
And she's like, yes, please.
And mostly because he's at her mercy in all other situations.
Yeah.
And so this is the balancing.
The earth is healing. We are back with Ruhn. He's fallen asleep on the couch. The sprites and dragons are all upstairs, while Flynn is up to other things. Quote, Flynn had been busy fucking a nymph upstairs. How any of them were sleeping with Finn's escapades down the hall was beyond Ruhn. In my mind, Flynn and Ari are already mates, so I am devastated by this. How dare he? Anyway, so Ruhn's asleep, therefore he wakes up with Day, and they are arguing right off the bat. Like, he's like, why were you mad at me? She's like, you were trying to look at me, and I don't like that. And then she's on the defensive, so therefore she accuses Ruhn of not knowing sacrifice. And Ruhn says he hasn't had an easy life. And Day says, quote, you know nothing of sacrifice, so your father doesn't like you. You're not the only one. So your father beat you, burned you. So did mine. My point is that if you are not careful, if you're not smart, you'll find yourself giving up pieces of your soul before it's too late. You will wind up dead. I don't know what this type of childhood trauma is like. So like this is coming from an absolute outside point of view, but I try to say this with understanding and compassion. And the reason why I want to take that, and because I like to nitpick on definitions of words, why I would categorize what happened to Ruhn and Day in their childhood is not a sacrifice, is that sacrifice is a choice. Sacrifice is an offering. Like, that is the definition of it. Trauma like that, abuse like that is not a choice. I think it's unfair to say that that should be classified as a sacrifice because, they didn't choose that. They're kids. Now, on the other hand, though, Lidia had to literally sacrifice her kids. So I think she's right. I think that Ruhn doesn't know what it's like to sacrifice. And I know I kind of read different clips of this argument here. So it kind of sounds like she's like, you don't know anything about sacrifice, and then goes into her about his dad. But Ruhn is the one who says, like, I know about sacrifice. I sacrificed all the time because I had an abusive dad. And then she was like, the fuck you did. So, I just think that that's an important part to them. And my note is like, so he brought it up first, so I guess she can say whatever she wants. But don't worry, because Ruhn will know how to give a hand to sacrifice.
Brunch.
Yeah.
I do love that you bring this up. I do agree with you. I mean, let's remember, Ruhn is basically an 80-year-old teenager.
Yeah.
And he's developing right now.
Yeah.
So he's trying to grow up. He probably feels like he doesn't measure up, which I'm going to talk about later. But I also, again, this is where we see the threads overlapping between our different characters. Bryce and Hunt have been arguing due to vulnerability, feeling exposed, feeling betrayed. We're seeing something kind of similar happen here with Day and Night, Day and Ruhn.
Yep.
And I think we talked about it last time, how much of Day's reaction was feeling vulnerable, feeling PTSD because of how often Pollux probably rapes her in her sleep.
Yep.
Or wakes her up with sex.
Yep.
So her being aloof and accusatory is not unfathomable. I can't say it right now.
No, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're nailing it.
Because, she felt vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out what she's saying. I feel like she's projecting her feelings onto him right now.
Yep.
She's not being careful. She's not being smart.
Yep.
She's made a lot of sacrifices. She's sacrificed herself. She's sacrificed her children. And yet she still finds herself giving pieces of her soul away to Ruhn.
Yeah. Like, she's like, those pieces of my soul were supposed to be saved for my own demise.
Right. And to ensure my children's safety.
Yeah.
Instead, what's going to happen? She's going to wind up dead.
Who?
Lydia.
Oh, but not really. I mean, a little bit.
She comes
back. She comes
She's a little dead.
She's a little dead.
But it's because of Ruhn.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that vulnerability she's sharing with Ruhn. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy right now.
Yeah. Ruhn, understandably, takes this all very hard. Quote, everything he was, the worth by which the world defined him, it had all been given to him by pure luck of being born into the, quote, right family. If he had done anything of value, it had been through the ox. But as a prince, he'd been running his entire life from that title, knew it to be utterly hollow. Who the fuck was he deep down? Not a king. His father wasn't a king either, not in the way that mattered. Ruhn is at a very lovely existential crisis point of like, it's been building up of like, who am I? What have I done?
Yeah.
And, he understands that there is a lack of title. And while everyone else has been kind of like battling with their titles, he's battling with the lack of title.
Yeah.
Even though he has one, but he sees just how like not valuable it is. And he's lost reverence for titles. Like they mean nothing to him. And therefore he's losing his identity. If titles don't mean anything and he is only but his title.
Yeah. Means nothing.
Then he means nothing.
Which makes sense. And I think that is honed in on by the fact that Day is telling him, nothing is sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think he understands that.
Yeah.
That he can't measure up to the sacrifice she's making. That he can play at being spy, but she's been doing this a lot longer. She's, probably risking herself more. And you're a child playing pretend.
Yeah. Like, she is a spy. He kind of was like finagled into like kind of whispering some clues and stuff. Yeah.
He's just a messenger.
He is.
Ruhn thinks at one point, quote, Bryce loved him far more than she hated their father, had given up privilege and power for him. As in Ruhn, not Autumn King. And I thought this was a lovely moment because I think it's a breadcrumb for what Ruhn will ultimately do for Bryce in Flame and Shadow.
Yep.
He's going to give up his privilege and power so that she can take all of it. And I think that's a lovely way to pay back the sacrifice that Bryce has made for him.
Absolutely. I think so too. And it ends with Ruhn thinking, quote, "Who the fuck was he? Prince of nothing." And that sounds a whole lot like Captain Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
When I read that, I was like, damn it, Ithan. I'm like, wait, you have nothing to do with this.
I did write Captain Whatever in my book as well.
That's funny. Yeah. It's because a lot of characters, they don't know who they are.
Yeah. Bryce is going through this. Ithan is going through this. Hunt only wishes he was nothing. But it's not true.
I feel too many things.
And I think what we're seeing is everybody's title right now rings really hollow with them.
Yeah.
Prime is going to ring hollow with Ithan.
Yep.
They're just on a journey to find their true selves and save the world at the same time.
They're busy. I get it. We have a podcast and we work full time and we write.
It's too much.
Same things as them. Let's get in some breadcrumbs. In chapter 48, after running from Ydra, Ruhn asks, "What game is she behind playing?" Hunt, "I think she knows we're up to something. I think she wants to see what we do next." How far can they go with their rebel activities without jeopardizing her identity?
That's my theory.
Yeah, like she's like, I don't want people to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Yeah. We're going to pretend I did not help you.
Yep.
In chapter 50, the first time Bryce sees Ariadne, quote, "She hadn't expected a beautiful female clad in nothing but a blanket standing against the foyer wall like some trapped animal. A trapped animal that will run away and become a pit fighting animal later."
Woohoo! Still in chapter 50, when Bryce meets the sprites, they tell her to meet the queen. Quote, "Why would I need to speak to her? Because princesses need allies." That's my sprite. Rithie said, and Bryce halted. Yes, she will.
Yes, she will. Still in chapter 50, when Jessica asks about the astronomer's rings and Bryce tells her about Ariadne, quote, "Is that what she calls herself?" A low laugh. "Fascinating. It implies that maybe that's not Ariadne's name and that she is much older than we know her to be if Jessica knows of her."
Yep. Finally, still in chapter 50, the 50 was a big chapter for us. Jessica gives Bryce research on dragons, and Bryce reads, quote, "Dragonfire is one of the few substances proven to harm the princes of hell. It can even burn the princes of the pit's dark hide." Okay, so one, it burns their dark hide. It just sounds so snippy. And I was like, did Jessica write that? Because it just sounds like it can burn their asses. Is what it essentially means.
Yeah.
But two, we also didn't see that play out in CC3.
No.
So future, we'll see.
Yeah, or did Ariadne's role in the final battle get cut out?
Yeah.
All right, Jack, I have a question.
Shit, that's a question to me. I was ready to read it to you. Okay, go ahead.
To what extent does Bryce's handling of Emile and Hunt in this section convey a loss of identity for Bryce? So you kind of wrote this question, and
remind me earlier.
I asked, do you mean Bryce is losing her identity, or do you mean SJM is losing track of Bryce's characterization?
Thank you. Okay, so SJM knew where she needed this to go when she wrote this, right? She had an idea of Flame and Shadow. Granted, we know that she rewrote that, but she said that things stayed the same, right? It makes sense with her progression. There might be moments where it feels like there's kind of jumps that need to happen in order for Bryce to get to where she needs to be character developmentally wise, like she needs to get there. So we'll make those jumps, but how much of them are jumps and how much of it is us just not being in her perspective all the time?
Yeah.
You have to kind of give leeway to that. And like you said earlier in this episode, we're able to read the subtext when it comes to Farah and Akatar and everything else. We kind of have to read that now, which is harder because, again, with Farah and everything else that was in her point of view, we could tell that she was an unreliable narrator. Right. And we can't blame Bryce for being an unreliable narrator. The omnipresent individual who's narrating is just unreliable, and we're getting bits and pieces. Oh. So It makes sense. We just have to infer more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like I was trying to allude to earlier, we're out of practice.
Us, you and me, everyone.
Everyone.
The community.
Everyone, because SJM hasn't written a book where so much inference was required since A Court of Thorns and Roses. And people don't like that book.
Yeah.
Because it's more coded.
Yeah.
Than Mist and Fury, Wings and Ruin.
Yeah.
Silver Flames.
It's not laid out.
It's not laid out. And I think people really struggle with that. And I think that's part of the reason why we're struggling with Bryce here.
Yeah. She
is secretive, not only towards Hunt and her friends, but towards the reader as well.
I wonder if this book would have been not just better received, but like maybe Bryce would be a better character if we didn't have to infer as much. And I know people love Bryce. Like, I know they really love Bryce. But I also feel like I hear so many times people saying, like, who she was at the end doesn't make any sense. And I hear other people who say the opposite. So I'm super generalizing here. But, you know, the growth that she's making, the choices that Bryce has to make, they're pretty intense. There's a lot of growth in a way that you don't see from Feyre. And Feyre grew a lot. So I don't want to, like, undermine her at all. But Bryce has to make some really hard choices that other SJM characters have not had to. And I think we lose a little bit of that magic by not being closer in her head.
I completely agree. You know, SJM chose a multi-point of view, third person narrative. And I think in a lot of ways it has done Bryce a disservice.
Yes.
If this book were told the same way that the ACOTAR books were told, predominantly first person from the main female character's point of view, I think we would have a completely different view of this book.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because of the twists that SJM wants to achieve, both in Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath.
Yeah.
And because of those twists, she had to make certain writing style choices that ultimately, I agree, do a disservice to her character. I don't think it does a disservice to the story. I think the storytelling is still good, but if you are unhappy with Bryce,
that's where the disservice comes in.
The disservice comes from the point of view and the narration style.
I completely agree. I mean, I get it. We needed we needed Hunt's point of view. It's very interesting. There's a lot of other things, but the third person is where it's the most at fault.
Yeah.
I think she could have still had all these different perspectives. But like you said, you take out third person, you lose those twists.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a preference. I know there's plenty of people who read this and don't have the same issues that I do.
I completely agree. You just, with multi-point of view third person stories, like the like the Throne of Glass series, you make more jumps. It is more mental exercise when you're jumping from so many characters.
Yeah.
And choosing to tell so much of Ithan and Tharion's story in this novel and the next one continues to do a disservice to Bryce as well.
Yep.
And I can only hope that what comes next pays off, because I love Bryce.
Yeah.
And I'm upset that we don't get more of her.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm happy that I'm happy we're doing this podcast for many reasons, but like, I'm happy like for today's conversation because I really do not like how she handles this at all.
Yeah.
I don't like this part of her. I don't like how she dismisses things, but I feel better after like, you know, the conversation and talking it out. And it's just so like, she is such a great character that had a lot more potential.
Yeah.
And if we can see how amazing she is, and that's like through the muck of it all, then like think about what it would be like without the muck being Ithan and Tharion.
Muckety muck.
Don't come back, but like do come back to the podcast.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be exploring chapters 54 through 59 of House of Sky and Breath.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Bye. We've really upgraded this episode. We have pillows for our lower back support, and now things for our toesies. That was Amy. The microphone did not hear that. Amy said, "Do you know what that says about us? That we're old." I don't hurt you.
Sure you do.
Amy said, "Sure you do." Oh, I just pulled up my pillow.
Feel better?
Yeah, that is some lower back support.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.